for. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowler's Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grit, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy show. But this one's going to be all about where's the beef. He has other obligations, as does happen around these holiday weekends, and so you're stuck just with me. And we're going to wax poetic about all the things that happen and basically just talk about whatever you want to talk about. So, yeah, glad to be here. We're going to wait a little bit as we get as we let everybody else kind of get in here, and I'll share this thing out to a couple of groups, and we'll kind of see what's going on. But man, let's see. So we had tournaments going on over the weekends. Since I've been on, we've had a couple of senior events. We've had, gosh, what else have we had going on? The Queens, the U22 Masters. There's been a few things out there. So it's been a busy weekend, as Memorial Days happen to be around here. We had about 70-mile-an-hour winds last night, so we lost a few trees, and so good times had by all. Are we going to get the two of you together? Yeah, I mean, it's just been a mess, and it's probably not going to happen this week either. As Thursday, I leave to go to Vegas, which is going to make it pretty tough for me to be on here Thursday. So, yeah, you get a little of both, and we'll see what's going on. Hey, Mom. But as usual, ask us anything or ask me anything, and if you'd like me to dish out anything on Stu, hey, here's your chance. So the one time you'll have no chance to refute anything I've said. So yeah, well, there's a 100-foot tree that fell over at Alan Riley, a regular contributor here. It fell on top of a container he had on his property, and we lost one, and then the top half of another one. Patrick Dombrowski, how's it going? Hey, I wanted to ask you, because you are the resident expert with tropical surges. How do you drill them compared to your normal, Zens and things like that? So weaker, stronger, tall, low. So it says, why tour trials and not use PTQ money for marketing? One, PTQs will still be available next year. But chasing around PTQs is a miserable way to try and get on tour. So there will still be PTQ spots, maybe two less, but in the real reason for tour trials and not just two squads is that we can't get A squad to B squad close to the same. And it doesn't matter if it's an amateur tournament, a regional tournament, a PBA 50, or the PBA Tour. A squad to B squad scoring pace is changing way too much. And so with that just leaves us kind of in a spot where we need to go to one squad to not compromise the competition. And so that being first, as well as trying to keep an eye on the future and keep open opportunities moving forward, tour trials is kind of where things are at. Yeah, I would like to see some of the rest of it. So, but hope to see you out in Vegas. We are bowling Sunday and Monday, Sunday afternoon, and then Monday morning before the senior tour or senior masters practice session. Nico, I did not get to see the Queens, but I have seen both Hope and Danielle and Jillian play. And I'm not quite ready to anoint Jillian as the best bowler in the world just yet, but she's certainly well on her way to competing with that title with a very select few, in my opinion. So, besides IQ 78, what would you suggest for 35-foot boardwalk? I mean, the usual suspects. The urethane balls, whether it's pitch black, uh, depending if it's a PBA event or not. Uh, so, 2-inch pins and balls like that are obviously the old way of doing it, although the more urethane that goes down the lane. Um, if it's a PBA event and you're actually using legal hardness ones, then uh, after 2 to 3 games, you'll probably be able to throw something on the medium range, like Phase Two or Sublime or something that's kind of rolly, that can blend out that carry down that happens. Um, as I feel like the lines are down lane, the carry down lines are 2 to 3 boards further left than with the older balls, and so that there's some friction to throw it around with the newer urethanes versus the older ones. Before, basically, it just became urethane only because all the carry down lines were also in the break point and at the end of the pattern were too far right, so there was nowhere to really go around. Don Russ says even with tropical surges, he says just same layouts. Uh, there are a few stronger than the old. The, for a little while, they were made down in Mexico, but so pin up and just CG out an inch. So Brian, good to see you. I'm glad you're coming out on the West Coast. How's my PBA 50 Tour Arsenal Reality? Attention Star Phase 2 Zen IQ Solid IQ Pearl Exponent Badger Claw. There you go. Urethane and ice. It seems pretty good. I would say one maybe more directional ball like a Vibo or something like that in between Zen and IQ Solid. Otherwise, I think you got pretty much all the bases covered there. I think everyone should bowl a qualifying set and move on to the top 64. That would be fine, but really, if we were to do something like that, we would have to split the squads up, and you'd have to qualify off your own squad to make it, which might be the only way to do it. I mean, and that's a possibility, but uh, as Dan said, we just have to stop playing them wrong on B squad. And so right now, it's gotten proven again on the 50 tour. We have one squad that's quite a bit more top heavy than the other squad, and A squad just tends to be better every day. So it doesn't really matter. So that's speaking of, did they decide what to do with players for titles? Yeah, they went with a 10-year rule. So if you have a title within 10 years, I personally think it's a little bit long. Um, but it's good for me that it is a little bit longer. So as of 2018, I can still enter some tournaments. I will not get free entry fees like the top 43 did. So if you didn't know, I ended up I think 46th, maybe 47th, and pretty awful year. So, but yeah. So and at that point, because there's a lot of them. Actually, I think at one point there was as many as 12. I don't think it ended up being that many. I think it ended at 8 or 9 that have a title, but that means that they can, for everyone that enters, they'll add another pair in the places that have more than 32 lanes. So we'll have slightly bigger fields. My guesses will be closer to 72 on most times, and if there's an odd number, they will fill out that pair to make 4 on a pair out of the PTQ, which will add some PTQ spots as well. So there's a decent chance the PTQ spots won't even be down from last year. There'll just be an avenue for non-exempt players to get out on tour and have a chance to play full time. Hoping to see it Senior US Open. Trying to decide on going to Bowl Expo, but tickets are pretty insane for a casual bowler. It's been a minute since I've been there, and as I've only been there as a representative, I don't actually know what the tickets are this much. Casey, yeah, we just went over it just a little bit already, but what happened, especially on those intermediate longs, those 38, 39 footers, is that the right-handers just used urethane for about 2 games versus 4 or 5, and then, there was a way for multiple angles after that, and not just multiple angles, I guess multiple rev rates, so you could go around it. I felt like the laydown spots got 3 to 5 further right, and the, down lane where it came off the end of the pattern was 2 to 3 further left, and so, those 38 footers end up being pretty easy actually after 2 games in both Wichita and Anderson, 2 of the highest scoring tournaments of the year, um, because there was a way to get around the carry down versus having to be right in the middle of the sludge all the time. So, and Joe said, I agree with that. Was has been offset. It's yeah, it's just a hard thing to do, and especially in the region you got time crunches too, and so you're not the lanes aren't setting as long. Tough for them to be there for uh, and really get the same amount of time. Uh, so, uh, so I just started bowling in high school and I loved all the storm balls. Went entry ball shot. I think a lightning blackout or maybe this. I think the new ion actually might be quite a bit more expensive. But so I might just go with a kind of a medium, lower flare, controllable, but it's got some pop to it. That would be a way to get in and get some control over what's going on first. Um, yeah, low end balls, tropical storm. I like to say tropical storms, tropical surges. Now that Dombrowski beats us all the time. So yeah, he likes sludge. How do you like that tree over the top of your container today? 70-mile-an-hour winds about 5:30 this morning. It was yeah, it was coming. It felt like a tornado, although it no sirens or no anything else, just a lot of hard rain. But yeah, it was good times. Let me see. Thanks. I thought that would have me people like you, Frankie, Wes, and Rash to do trials and or PTQs. I mean, it is how the world works, though. Um, you know, Frankie obviously is still in his prime, and that's more of an anomaly of having a tough day, but or a tough day, a tough year. But Wes fighting injuries, Rash fighting injuries. It would have been a tough go for sure. The good and the great. Tom Adcock from the PBA 50 Tour, looking for another win this year. Wouldn't be not far away. Knocking on the door a lot right now. Adam, how would you describe your 2024 PBA 50 Tour season so far? I would say mixed reviews. Um, uh, Made the first 2 step ladders, second in one, third in the other, and ended up third in both of those shows. Um, yeah, not not super excited with how I played on those step ladders necessarily. And then the next one, bowled Angelo 2 weeks in a row to make the show. The first time, shot 260 with urethane and kind of survived. Cut a lot of good hits to beat him 260, 250. He left a 9 pin in the ninth. This time, I rung a 10 in the ninth. Then he picked up the super washout in the 10th to shut me out. And he made that show. And then last week, Troy Lint had a lane that I didn't like a lot, and it was by far the easiest pattern we had. But I went to an idle and blended it all out, but it didn't take advantage of the fact the lanes were easier, and so I was on my good lane, but I was using a ball that didn't really give me both sides of what was out there to be had, and I ended up leaving a little half 10. The 6 pin tapped the 10 and wobbled it over, but he just outbowled me, and I had a chance to steal one there, but I didn't do it. So, um, what equipment I use most? I've used an absolute power. I guess I slept on that ball a little bit on the regular tour. Felt like it was maybe a little bit too smooth, but it's one of those balls that's too smooth, but it just keeps striking. And so I have a lower one that's got some surface on it and a taller one with some polish, and they've both been pretty useful this year for sure. Good morning. Any idea how the regional tour can grow financially? Well, I mean, entries are pretty full almost everywhere right now. So entry wise, that's not really the problem. How do you grow and create value for hosts to feel like they could pay more to host a regional would be the way for that to happen. Sponsor money is basically the difference between amateur tournaments and professional tournaments, and those host fees are basically what pays the step ladder. But um, what do we provide for that host because they're not paying lineage uh, to make it worth them paying more than you know $6,000, which is kind of the standard. That's the standard in the Southwest region anyway. Um, and then ideally, what could get them to pay 10,000 on a regular basis, and how could they make their money back? And so the pro am model is just tired. That doesn't really do it anymore. So what are we going to do? Do we coaching clinics? Do you do which has had some success in different areas? Uh, so I mean, like this, yeah, we had 120 entries outside for the Midwest regional outside of Chicago. Uh, right now, if you don't enter early, you do get shut out of regionals uh, pretty much everywhere. So entries are up. We just have to we have to do a better job of selling and creating avenues, uh, streams of revenue for that center through the PBA, through the players. And I don't have all the answers there, but there are a few ideas that have been used in different places that are fairly successful, and maybe we can grow off those. Adam says, "Do you think the oil pattern for the USBC Senior Masters is going to play similarly to the regular Masters?" I doubt it, but who knows? Because they're not going to post it until we get there. And I mean, historically, the last couple of years, it's had some similarities. It's on the medium long end. It's got more volume than the Seniors Bowl most of the time, and it's fairly hard. Uh, in years past, it's been the hardest pattern that we bowl in the whole year. We bowled on some pretty hard ones this year, and the U.S. Open right after it is on Bear. So hopefully, it's not quite that hard, but we'll see what happens. Uh, it won't do any good to you just come with an arsenal that's prepared to bowl on whatever you're going to see. And you also have A, B, and C, so there's no rear oils for the senior masters, and the line holds up, so you have to have yeah, just have to be ready for anything. This is what party part would you replace if you could that would help you the most out there on the tour? Well, uh, it you could argue that it's my head, but probably my hip at this point. Uh, torn labor in my right hip doesn't allow me to push off as well or as consistently as I like sometimes. Somewhat related to my back surgery 10 years ago, but really I think it ends up being more my hip than anything else, and that's what's really it's hurt me a lot the last three years or so from a performance standpoint. Yes, I could use a pitch black as USBC event. I am aware of the rules, so uh, I'm sure there will be some purples out there as well because 65 hardness only matters when it's reactive ball. Uh, Steve, good morning, Chris. Love the channel. How much do you use topography maps? Do you know where to find them for Samstown Senior Masters? I don't use them a lot, to be honest. I use them more to confirm than to predict because it does show left to right, but it does not show front to back. And although the last ones, I guess they used over at oh, where were we at? For the regular Masters, did show some of the depressions and things in the front that in a different 3D way than it hadn't seen before. So a lot of this information, until I see it two or three times in the same places, uh, I don't really use it as absolutes. You just use it as an additional information, like the guy in front of me leaving a 3-6-10. Um, you know, Sometimes, unless I'm really familiar with the player, I don't know if that was the player, ball change, speed, you know, those kind of things. And so sometimes those topography maps can get you fooled. You look at them and you go, "Oh, well, this lane's definitely going to hook more," and it really doesn't. When you're playing the gutter, those things can be very useful. The middle of the lane, I guess it's not quite as it. It's not an absolute, I guess. Even though gravity beats all, it still sometimes confirms what you're seeing on the lane more than it does, tell the whole story. Attention star 248 049 017 and the 14's 253 046 014. These variances make a big difference. Obviously, the first number does make a fairly big difference. RG is kind of a measure of how fast a ball will spin and start spinning once it sees some friction, and 5 points is fairly significant. Um, that's probably 3 to 4 feet. I would say in general distance of how much of where that ball will really start transitioning, processioning, whatever term you want to use. In the mid lane and break point. And so the 049 to 046 and 017 to 014 it means it flares a little bit less, but that's not so significant. Really, the RG number is the one that will make the biggest difference there. And in the case of attention star, I think it will help it continue more. That's a ball that, at least for me, stands up a lot in the mid lane and gets going a little bit forward. So as a player that's not as much rotation, the 253 part might actually help it. Kind of like a road does in somewhat in that way, with a little stronger cover, wants to stand up, but the RG numbers help it keep continuing down the lane. Let me get catch up here. Torn labrum in the hip. You're starting to sound like Kyle Sherman. Yeah, but I didn't have surgery on either one of them. He's done it on both of them, and um, yeah, this last one didn't go that well for him. The recovery time was longer, had way more pain. Uh, it took him a long time to where he could, where he got to throw it like he wanted to throw it. And, kudos to him for bailing out a season there in the last couple of weeks. That's the talent that we know he is. But it's tough when you're hurt and you're not beating the best players in the world when you're hurt. Senior Masters burn should be called extreme transition. The oil's volume is significant. Yeah, I mean, they've been above 30 for the seniors at the Senior Masters the last few years. The seniors really get stuck around between third and fourth arrow. A lot of them do. So there's still enough oil in the lane. It doesn't blow up like it does when the regular tour plays and starts at 17, 18, and then gets to 25 pretty quick. So, uh, uh, Hi, is this relevant to you? But I'm planning on doing an international transfer to WSU for aerospace engineering. Wichita State ratings don't really look good except for aeronautical engineering. Would you vouch for them? Well, since Boeing, Beechcraft, Learjet, and who else? I think we have five companies inside of Wichita. So the engineering program has always been top notch. The nursing program has always been top notch, uh, and I think the business program is pretty solid. Uh, I It's been a while since I looked at the numbers, to be honest, but that aerospace engineering is definitely one of their flagship, the entrepreneurship campus that they built in the last 5 years. The campus is just completely different than when I was there. The golf course is now these magnificent buildings that house a couple of those programs, and so yeah, I think you have a tough go finding a better climate and environment for aerospace engineering than Wichita State. Have I met Dave Allen? I might have, but offhand, I don't. I don't. He's not out here all the time. Try to avoid the lanes closer to East Wall in the house in the morning and West Wall later in the day. Yeah, well, not so important at a casino where you're in the basement. So, Hey, he's there. Been a while since I've been at home, so didn't even do my own lighting today. So, how do you think the string pins performed at the regional a few weeks ago? Yeah, this has been a topic, and I didn't end up bowling in it, but I watched quite a bit of it, and I would say I would compare the certified string pins to like twister pins. They do fall different, no doubt. The same is probably um, that wouldn't be accurate, but um, okay.
Gotcha.
Uh, but it didn't change bowling, and I think the non-certified ones, those are the carnival pins. That's not really bowling. There's too many anomalies, too many things, and they happen too often. This version, I thought it wouldn't be my preference necessarily, but I thought I wouldn't. It wouldn't stop me from bowling a competition on them. I guess it's kind of where I'm at with it right now. If I was to guess, and it would be a guess, that I think regionals will be certified in the PBA moving forward. I don't think national tour events will for at least a little while. Um, but I do believe that there will be events that will be held on strings, and as long as they're certified and to some level, and there's probably some more adjustments to be made with those. They were so early in this adaptation. It's really unfortunate that Cubica put out that first version for a worldwide competition without doing more due diligence and really trying to get them right. Uh, it was they did themselves a huge disservice to this whole thing because had they come out with this version to begin with, I think that the reactions would have been, you know, they're they're not even that noticeable for the most part. So no, it's just it's a busy holiday weekend, and there's family things, and Brady's got some things going on this morning, and so he's just being a good dad this morning. So beef will be back. Uh, Frisbee, where do you feel the Iron Pro fits in a three ball house shot league arsenal? I think it is a middle ball. I just drilled it Friday, uh, and I got to throw a little bit in Springfield at the Ozarks, and they hooked plenty there. And then I bowled on a house shot tournament with a TBST tournaments. Actually, Alan Riley, it's in the chat. He runs that group along with Dino and some guys. Uh, I always bowl his tournaments, and this time it was at Plano and on a house shot, and I used it there most of the night. And so stronger cover. It's in that middle range. I do feel like it's not as strong as a phase two. I feel like it's stronger than a IQ tour. And my goal is to get that video tomorrow before I get on the road. That and the XL, and get those done, and get those over to Stu so he can get them up and posted. How would you compare the Axiom Pearl and Idle Cosmos to the Sublime and Summit Peak? Huh. Uh, Summit Peak and Axiom Pearl are probably closer to each other, although I think the Summit Peak is one, the core stands up a little earlier, and I think so. I think it's a little sharper and more forward. Where the Axiom Pearl, I think it blends out uh, some of the wet dry a little better, and then has a little more continuous shape. The Cosmos is earlier and smoother for sure. Sublime is more than all of these. Uh, Way more of for some people, I believe that's a really good overall ball. If you're a little higher speed, you have more rotation. I think that's a ball you can use a lot. And most of the rest of these are a little bit more nichey, I guess, in general. Adam says, I've watched your urethane ball review a few times, and you said the IQ 78 is probably more usable than the pitch black. Why is that? That's usable for me because my the one thing I'm still pretty good at is I can make the ball pick up, even though my rev rate is a lot less than some of the top guys out there. Getting it to pick up is what I'm pretty good at. Unfortunately, that's most useless superpower in bowling right now because we're in we're in a stretch to where lane machines aren't putting the oil down as fast as they used to. Uh, uh, the Brunswick machine sprays out in front of it, so inherently it's going to struggle to get the oil down as quickly. The Kegel machine doesn't get down as fast, and so they do have reverse oil, but for I don't really understand why, but the standard protocol is to cut off the oil at 7 feet and let it taper off so it doesn't carry over in the next lane. So they're not putting it out in the very front on the way down or on the way back. And so you're literally laying it down into very, very little oil and then kind of throwing it into a wave of it at just past the dots. And so with pitch blacks and the IQ 78s, most often there's 500 grit on these balls, and so they're already picking up pretty early. Um, then I have to throw it a little bit slower on top of it. So the ball being a little harder, it does not pick up as quick in the front of the lane. It lets me get through that stretch from 3 feet to 12 feet a little bit cleaner than the pitch black did, and doesn't force me as far left. Neither ball is going to hook a ton down lane comparatively. So, but the IQ 78 is more like how I want to use urethane, which I want to use to create hold. I'm not really trying to create hook with it so much, and so I like it in a team setting. I plan on using that instead of the pitch black in the team event to help break the lane down and help make the lane better, not only for me, but for everyone else. So that there's also a spot to go around the carry down versus throwing urethane and getting urethane carry down in everyone's break point. I want it to be left of everyone's break point and make the lanes easier. Speaking of my teammate, Mr. Snee, I am looking forward to this weekend as well. Start the drive on Thursday and get there on Saturday. Uh, Tony, who made a big run at the villages. Uh, and our first super chat. Richard, thank you so much for the super chat. Good morning. I grew up a huge fan of yours, made the switch to two hands, 18 miles per hour, 450 to 500 RPMs, bowling on a 19 mil typical house shot using harsh reality, attention star, lightning blackout, tour dynamics, hammer red pearl urethane, spare any gaps and suggestions. Man, that is not very much oil. You do have a couple options down at the bottom, which I like. The red pearl urethane, that's old school there. That ball was good, and it makes some sense, especially for you being rev dominant on a very light house. I assume you don't get to use the attention star hardly at all on that house shot. Um, that might be a case where something like a tropical surge might actually come into play for you, or a hustle rip. One of the hustles down there. Uh, that You have two balls kind of in that range already, though. So I think you probably have to do a surge to actually see much difference. If you need anything at all down there, you're pretty well covered. You have a low flare angular one. You have a Tour Dynamics, which is a smoother version. You have the Red Pearl, which is the ultimate smooth ball, and that's way too weak for most people, but probably not for you, and especially not on uh, that drier house shot. If you were to bowl someplace else, I would say you need a middle ball in there somewhere, a phase two Sublime. There's a Zen Reloaded coming out. Maybe even an Ion Pro, the Ion Pro, which is going to be a little more flare than the Lightning Blackout. It's kind of the exponent is gone, so it's going to kind of replace that range in there uh, for you. The Road is another ball that could be. I haven't seen enough of it to really know if I love it or not. It's been useful, but I think one of those low RG symmetrical balls that flare a little bit more than your Lightning Blackout would give you a ball in between there and Attention Star. Um, yeah, so probably, the Sublime might make the most sense because it is a little bit shiny too, so it gives you another option off that. But I really appreciate the super chat, and if there's anything else you have a follow up with that, you've covered the follow up question for sure. So thanks, Richard, and good luck, and uh, uh, commend you on going to two hands. I think that's probably the future. State of Kansas engineering programs in general are underrated for sure as a Kansas alum. I'll take your word for it. Yeah, we've lit it up. My twister pins, aka the 4-9 lead pins. Yeah, I mean it's basically a 4 pin. It's just with twisters, the 5 pin gets out of the way awful lot. But yeah, so you don't leave the 4 pin so often without the 9. That's for sure. And like I said, it's different, and so you know it up front. But it's still bowling, and that's so. Uh, yeah, Richard says I feel like everything's too strong. It said Hustle Rip or M and that will be a little bit weaker covers on that on a similar core numbers to the blackout and cleaner. But yeah, tropical surge might be the answer. And in general, I'm not big on recommending those lower ends, but now it's made back in Utah again. And when you watch guys like Dombrowski who have a lot of success and bowling this last weekend, it reminded me again on the house shots just how much they can hook on these higher friction surfaces that either through, at the Ozarks, great proprietor there, same place we bowl the tour stop at. They just have a ton of lineage. They do a really good job, and so I mean the surface is just beat up because they get a lot of bowling on it. Or you get these new places like SPL that have a ton of surface built into it, uh, and so you have all that texture and it just makes them hook. And so yeah, my whole life, that's what she does. So uh, in general, do you think oil patterns need more volume for today's equipment? Feel like we're always on the low side. I think the balls have uh, the oil absorption part, especially combined with the fact that a lot of manufacturers dipped from 75 down to way closer to 72 about 10 years ago. And that was one of the offshoots of the PBA dropping their 75 hardness mandate is that everyone kind of dropped them down. And so it affected urethane, it affected reactive. I think them moving to 73 takes away some of those older balls and will, have moved them up a little bit. I think there is certainly a case to be made for in today's current environment where 75 uh, or harder would be a good move for both proprietors, lane beds, the the, the time of re-oils and all the other things that go on right now. Uh, the other thing I believe, I guess I wouldn't say believe, but I'm leaning towards is all these thicker oils all make the lanes hook sooner too. And so it just feels like we have a storm of older surfaces, new surfaces with a lot of texture in them, high absorption rates of all balls, shiny, dull, whatever, and lane machines that aren't putting oil out as early as they used to. So there's less launch pads. Um, you know, that being said, don't confuse what you see on tour. 30 mils out there and 24 mils on a house shot are somewhat the same because all the 24 mils is in the middle 10 to 10 on a house shot for the most part. Very little of that oil is right of 8. And so, but it feels like for the rev rates and things that are hitting the world between two handers and kids and tour, it's uh yeah, it feels like that we should be closer to 35 or 40, which just creates different problems. Don't don't get me wrong, or that we have to do a better job on the lower end, uh, options of equipment. And I believe, you know, or lucky at Storm, we have a few options down there with the hustle line and even the tropicals. If you get that far down, if you get to where you need that. Ron, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Corey, thanks for good. Uh, Hey, Chris, I often hear about having more events from you and Stu. Would having an international swing be something that the PBA considers? Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of talk about a lot of things. I mean, we had a summer series 6 years ago. The problem is when the prize funds don't get to a big enough number, it doesn't justify the travel. Uh, I mean, lots of people will go bowl the Lucky Larson this summer over in Sweden, and it takes a lot on their part to make that happen and to get the prize fund up. To but expenses are basically $2,000 to go bowl that tournament between flight, hotel, food, and entries. And so if you can't finish in the top 16, if it's not 2 grand, then it's really it's just not it's not a good deal. And if you really want all of the PBA, then you have to get to where the top 32 is probably 2 grand. And assuming you have more entries. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd love to have that. And we did some of those with the World Bowling Tour there for a while. COVID put all that on hold, and uh, it hasn't re-kicked off yet. And so I hope it does. But so far, nothing besides the Lucky Larson has. So how did the Ozarks treat you guys? Well, it treated us fine. We just didn't bowl very well. Uh, Ryan bowled better, I guess, than I did. He shot 710 and 770. I shot 690 and 670 in the worst way possible with a bad opening game, followed by 510 and 50. So yeah, it was horrible bracket sets. And then team event, we just didn't. We bowled Rick Justice and Mark Henninger and Mark's wife because Ryan got his card, and that changed things with Austin Bolts was our fifth. Our companion team was Alex George and gang, and so we had way too much rev rate on our pair, and so they were pretty. There's a lot of friction in that center anyway. Sunshine, it used to be Sherm Lawler once upon a time, and so I think I shot 610 or 620, something 2-0 every game, and Ryan shot 630 with seemingly really good ball reaction, but the moves were too fast, and the splits were too often. All right, Ryan says he's on his way home to save the show. So can't happen soon enough. There you go. Yeah, I can do that. Huh? Century. That's your text. All right. Hang on here. We're going to try and. Oh my God. Nothing's easy. Nothing's easy sometimes. So, yes. So we'll get Ryan on here in just a second. Talk for that. Looking forward to the reviews. Yeah, let's see. Still using 3G racers. I guess I could wear Dexters if I wanted to. I just don't see any reason to. Uh, I like them just fine. And to be honest, I actually like them better than the older version, I guess. Uh, sheesh. Sorry, trying to get this sent off so you can get on here. They're more comfortable. I think they are a better fit. Um, Translation, you're heading downstairs. He already had a haircut this morning, so yeah, we had a little miscommunication with Stu, and so I didn't realize he wasn't going to be able to do a show today. He thought I wasn't going to be able to do a show today because I was already headed to Vegas. His days all messed up. Adam Krause, the proprietor at Sand Hills and Aberdeen, one of the favorite stops of the year on the PBA 50 tour for sure. Right next door to Pinehurst. Come to Sand Hills. We have oil. I'm old and I need it. Yeah, that's they were fairly slick there too. That was one of the first times I got to throw the absolute power for real, and I like, I missed. I missed on that. We have a couple of super chats I want to get to. Beef was talking about how counterintuitively a ball like phase two can be good for later in the block on a house shot. I've seen it to be true, but why? It's because some of the best house shots are actually best right off the bat. And so they play way more like, a 6 to 8 to 1 in that spot, but everybody piles up in that same spot. And so the 6 to 1 turns into, 12 to 1 and gets super wet dry. And when it gets wet dry, then you actually need a stronger ball so that because you're going to move left, you're going to move into more oil, and you need it to roll out of that oil and also not overhook off the dry. And so, lots of times when lanes break down, because of the amount of oil left of that, you actually need a stronger ball later in the block versus a weaker one. I hope that answers what you got. Marion, what is the key to keeping fingers below the ball's equator and getting the fingers to fast twitch? There's a lot going on here with that. One of the ways people used to do it before two-handed was a thing was basically take a lightweight ball and do one-handed kind of one-step drills, and basically just put your fingers in, take a one step with a six pounder, 8 pound ball, and get to learn the feel of it rolling off your fingers. And Ryan can talk a little bit about this because he didn't hook it a lot as a one-hander comparatively, and then now that he's both two-handed, now he can hook it plenty with his thumb in it.
Yep. Yeah, I don't really know how to explain it other than the motion itself. You just got to keep your hand underneath the ball long enough to.
Now, the other side of that is that if you're way bent over at the waist, your hand's not going to end up underneath it. You have to be taller.
Yeah, you have to be.
Because as your body goes forward, your hand rolls up on top of the equator. So your fingers will be behind it, but they won't be underneath it. So you have to be tall enough that your arm can have a little curve, and for your hand to be underneath it, and your elbow to be underneath it. And so for your elbow to be underneath it, also you can't be way forward. That shoulder can't be forward because if it is, it just won't. You won't be able to do what you're trying to accomplish and work the inside of the ball that Randy talks about on TV all the time. So. I hope that answers what you got. If you have a follow-up, please do. Chuck Richard says he likes your backdrop. Speaking of bowling shoes, whatever happened to Lin's? Everyone in the 80s, 90s. To be honest, part of the problem was they lasted too long. But they were slow to adapt the adjustable part. Dexter got in there, and they got the patents on all the interchangeable things. And so the dots is what Linz came up with to try and combat that, but they were just too far behind. They're too far behind the curve. And so it just didn't work out. Wow. Let the carnival begin. Dogs are great. Have more.
Add more dogs.
So I currently have an attention star and I placed an order for an Eternity Pie as being a speed dominant player. I need some help on oily conditions to get the ball into a roll. I mean, that's where the gem and reality balls really fit in. Those are great balls for that.
Pie is pretty good too. Yeah.
I think this XL may fit in there, but I won't know until I actually throw it. You've thrown it more than me, but
yeah.
Ryan, have you thrown the road yet?
I have. It is the lowest in ball of my bag. It's pretty smooth, pretty covery for a 255 ball. I don't use it to really shape it a whole lot. I use it more when I need to keep it a little closer. But that's me.
Yeah, I think it's a little cover strong, and then the high RG, lets it continue more. which is a high road feature for sure. So, um, but should I consider the ion to replace my solid symmetrical benchmark when it dies? That seems to be the fit right now. So if you're not super speed dominant, that would be the only way where I would probably go to something a little bit stronger if you're a real speed dominant player. But Michael Slatsky, what's the difference have you seen between the tropical purple navy versus the hustle X-ray? If you have a rip, do you need either of these? We might have to ask our resident expert, Mr. Dombrowski, because I don't have a purple tropical, so I don't know. Although after last weekend, I I think I'm going to consider. For some reason, I taken my hustle wine out of the bag too, and uh, it was a reminder of how much hook there can be. You get stuck bowling on, not stuck, but there's just so many re-oils all the time on the tour that you forget how much they can hook. And you know, not every place is adding more oil to the lanes right now. Let's see. If I already have a phase two in my bag, what should be the next ball to balance out the arsenal? Uh, Assuming you need something that goes longer. I mean, I guess it depends on where what you bowl on and what you're seeing. So, I mean, if you need more, I would say a gem is probably. I would have said a reality, but that's not a harsh reality, uh, or a gem. And then on the other end, I think that's where you can go to. Oh, there's a couple of good ones out there. Yeah, this ion is a ball underneath that. Um, the lightning blackout is a little bigger drop below that. That's not. That wouldn't be where you would have it. You have what do you have in that range?
What in the phase below the phase two
Below the
range?
phase two.
Well, I've been using this UFO alert, but would be below that. Probably be lightning blackout. It'd probably be or the virtual energy. That'd be another ball that's
The
below it.
Vivo fits in that range.
Yeah.
And the Vivo is kind of what we've recommended a lot because the phase two is rounded and it's steady, and the Vivo is it goes long. It's not. It doesn't have quite as big a window as the other one, but when it's good, it's definitely a more directional shape.
Yeah.
Barnzy 2.0. I'm struggling on burned up sport and getting my ball through the fronts. Besides bowling down, what do you do? Oh, 1.0. I guess he's talking to me.
It's on
Okay.
you.
Yeah. Well, that is a me problem for sure.
He's a two-hander too, by the way.
You what?
He says he's a two-hander down in the chat.
Okay. Well, then maybe it is for you.
No, it's for you. It's a
Okay.
1.0.
Bowling down is obviously one of the ways to do it. Loft is another way to do it, but you have to loft this way, not up. If you lost up, it just digs in as soon as it hits the lane. One of the there's two definite, distinct types of loft, and the hit up one will actually make it hook more. The other thing is to add rotation, and with a two-hander, that's a little different. With one hand, you can do grip pressure, where since my thumb's pretty tight, I can relax and go to a 60% grip pressure and push the ball through the front, and I can add rotation by turning my hand up on the side of it. Not as easy to do two-handed.
You can take grip pressure out as a two-hander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much you hit up on it at the bottom, versus pushing it.
Yeah, and
Not pushing it with your palm is what when I watch Simo, I think you push it with your palm forward a little bit more versus with your hand and your fingers.
Yeah.
On the up.
Dombrowski responded. You see it?
There he is. Out of the box, purple navy is at 2,000, X-rays at 4,000, tropicals a few weaker. There you go. Even with a little more surface on it. So probably box to box, if they're both at no polish 4,000, it'd be probably about four different. You've heard from the expert. He's spoken. My man's made more money with that ball than anyone on
He's
tour.
a dog.
For sure. Huh?
He's a dog.
He is. Sorry, I'm catching back up. Oh, so yeah, Adam, I missed your question, so you're gonna have to. It's just me today, so you're just gonna have to retype it.
The struggle is real.
Yeah, there's when you have two people, you can go through it and read them and alternate, and it. Brian, hey, good bowling in the last stop. That was Clearwater. Shot 300, one of the last games. Nice crowds there. He had them going. Did it to make the cut. Ended up qualifying pretty high. So he it was nice. It's always interesting when you go to, like, we haven't been to Florida on the regular tour in forever. Like we both the COVID thing. Then so of course we didn't see anybody. But the time before that was the Villages in like 2001 or two. It's been a long time. So there's a lot of guys I haven't seen that are really good from that part. And we did more regionals there. So yeah, but he bowled really well. I didn't see what happened in the matches. We ended up on the other opposite sides of the bracket. So but obviously throws it good. Wouldn't have any problems throwing strikes, that's for sure. Marion, combating too far forward is my summer project. Yeah, and I think we've talked about it a couple of times on here, but that's pretty common. I mean, you can either embrace it, like a guy like Shota, super far forward, and then he has a ton of axis rotation, but he's never going to be up the back of it. That's not going to happen. You know, he's got an interesting, he's got a very short, stocky body with really short arms too. So part of the reason why he's so far forward is because of body type. So yeah, I mean, I think getting in better body positions will let you do more things, let you be more versatile, and let you bowl better on basically anything. It's kind of the idea. Adam says, I must confess, I've been thinking about getting urethane because of how much the lanes are hooking, but I wonder if there's a shortcut around it. And your rev rate's not super high. Adam's left-handed. He's bowled some of the qualifiers out at Carolier. And he's a little bit on, he's probably considered a little bit speed dominant. So urethane is not really.
Yeah.
The shortcut is basically taking the old ways we did it was take a stronger symmetrical ball and basically drilling it down and a little weak so it didn't get offline in the front and it just tumbled. And the other one is taking balls like Tour Dynamics and either drill them low or even a 2-inch pin and controlling that motion that way. And if you're speed dominant, and we still see guys like that, guys like Matt Sanders who feel like they can't hook it enough to keep up with the Jespers and the Jacobs, they still throw those type of balls instead of trying to make a urethane ball work when it doesn't really roll that good for them. I hope that makes sense. With all the super clean symmetrical pearls under phase 2 benchmark balls, when do you like to use the Sublime? I personally think that cover's fairly strong. So even though it's shiny, I think it's on the strongest of the shiny.
Yeah, it's still in that range. It's kind of in the benchmark range, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a benchmark ball. It's just a different version of a phase 2. Really, it's a shiny version of phase 2, and it's certainly before you get down to the Vibos and the shiny asymmetrical whippers. Good morning. 450, 17 miles an hour, no thumb, one hand. The Tom Doherty version. Wanted to ask about starting a storm arsenal would be good to start with in the current lineup. 17, is that on the monitor or is that actually off your hand? That's off the monitor. That's pretty matched up.
Yeah.
But in general, you're probably going to, I would start with something like an Ion Pro, some of the medium. You're not going to need as much of the flaring balls as some of the other guys are.
Lightning blackout.
Lightning blackout, one of those type of balls, I think, might be a good place to start. Get some control and put plenty of pop, and then go from there and build around that.
It's on the monitor when he's on the lane, so you could even use like a bigger ball, like
so he's 19 and a half, so he can, yeah. That's where you get to, phase two, still phase two. It's not optimal idles earlier than that. The absolute power has been a really good kind of middle-ish. It's a little stronger than benchmark.
Sneaky good.
It is really sneaky good because it's got a long continuation window. And sometimes to your eye, you go, wow, it just doesn't hook as much down lane as I want it to, but it still strikes.
Yeah.
And so it gives you that. I mean, that's what's made the urethane so good, is that it controls the pocket. And so, yeah, it doesn't make the move that you want to see down lane, but it lets you hit the pocket every shot, and it still strikes way more than it looks like it's going to. What about the optimal idle? That's another one that's up in that range. Smoother, a little stronger than a phase two, in my opinion. So I'll let you take on this one. New bowler, I stand on 20 and throw it up 10. When I start moving left and try and get around the ball, it starts getting very spinny with high tilt. Any ideas? Well, you got it for a new bowler. You have all the terms down already.
Yeah.
Probably what's happening when you're moving left is you're trying to throw it with your shoulder, and you're trying to hook it early. So you have to get your body facing your target and still come up through to where this part of your arm is still coming up through the middle of the ball, which I imagine is probably happening when you're standing on 20 and throwing it to 10. But then as you're moving there, your body's still facing forward, but you're trying to throw it this way. And so then you throw it out, and then your hand rolls around it, and you lose leverage. You need to get your breastplate and your hips facing your target, and then throw that same shot and roll it through. I've often wondered which bowler on tour has the biggest temper. Chris Collins was for a long time. Right now, it's Simo. Pete at different times. Marshall once upon a time. Much like my bowling career, I've probably been in the top 5 most of the time.
No way.
It's not that funny. Question for Ryan. Have you bowled league with the Storm Fate? And if so, how do you feel about it?
I have. I used it when it first came out. It's pretty good. I don't know if it would be my go-to league ball because it's a little quick and makes the cliff a little taller for me, which is not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So
if you're bowling on league, I don't think it's the right thing. I honestly, it's it is quick, and that's that is a good thing when you're looking for it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
probably lean towards a smoother ball. I don't know. The Scion Pro seems to be the real deal. So
yeah, it seems pretty good. You've had a lot of success in the region with it already. I've gotten to throw it, and I've kind of thrown it as I'll see what it does, and figured I'd get out of it because I really like the Lightnings, and they flared a little bit less, but they're also a cleaner cover, and so it's hooked more than I thought it would. I didn't put it. I I put the old 5x5 and let the talent shine lay out in it. So yeah, I mean it's literally 5x5 by
3,
2.5 or
2.5.
3.
Yeah, 2.5, I think.
Yeah, and so it hooked more than I thought. It was way more of a metal ball than it first appeared. Uh, and the Ion Pro live
Absolutely.
the same back. Absolutely, those two balls are not. They're pretty far apart. I would say they're pretty complementary.
Yeah, very.
Uh, both controllable shapes. Both kind of. I would say the Idol is definitely a control shape, and the Ion Pro is mostly a control shape. And
A
so
little less.
yeah, but it's certainly less overall ball, cleaner to that spot than an idle is. So Adam, I may have missed what you got in there. Um, sorry, comments jumped around on me. Uh, here's all right. I'm stuck between half thumb, smallwood style, and two finger. I can't make myself commit to the full two hand change. Any ball recommendations for my first two hand ball to throw?
Um, Depends how you throw it. I would still say that Ion Pro is I mean, Ion Pro, Idol. Those are my favorite balls as a two-hander right now. Most controllable shapes. So
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. Largely, when the higher your rev rate gets, the more control you're looking for in the lane because you can strike. Your rev rate, speed and rev rate, are gonna knock the pins over. Now you
yeah,
just need to hit the pocket more often. That's why Walter Ray beat everybody for so many years, because he just hit the pocket more often. His rev rate was 25 to 30% less than the other guys, but he hit the pocket more often, and so his strike percentage is higher. Alan Riley, why am I getting more reps on the ball? With insert joke here, with relaxing my hand, wrist versus ripping on it. This actually comes back to the grip pressure part and how clean your thumb will get out of it. And so, generally speaking, when people want to really get on it, they grab it a little bit more. But if your thumb's not, if you're not able to clear your thumb fast enough, by adding grip pressure, all you're doing is basically shortening the time, the lag between your thumb releases and your fingers do. Versus when you're letting it go, the weight of the ball now is letting it clear your thumb quicker, and you're actually the lag is longer, even though it's less effort.
yeah. For Alan, I recommend just soaking your hand in water for like 1 to 2 days and then leaving it there. Not bowling.
Man, I would never say that, Alan. I just can't. I can't believe just that is poor
Um,
parenting. Just poor parenting.
Dang.
What's your favorite ball to throw on collegiate?
My favorite ball was the Optimum Idol. That was the one I threw a lot after game one. And I threw it for a lot of college this year. Let me do a
Yes,
lot
you
of different things. Play straight, hook it, control the lane, control the pocket, which is what you need in college. So
if ball returns could speak, it would be Simo. There's probably some other competitors there. I don't know. I've never seen Chris get mad before. Fair Davis Simo. Belmo, I've seen mad a few times. Well, that's ironic because Belmo really doesn't, rarely ever gets mad. He is trying to be in control of his emotions at all times,
yeah,
both highs and lows. So, uh, yeah, it's funny. It's always interesting because I heard somebody say, that they thought Parker was a bad guy, that he didn't sign an autograph for him or sometime, and I'm like, man, in 30 years, not once, not once. It's proved to me that no matter what you did, that somebody would not like not like you. That guy is above and beyond all the time. The main reason I want to give myself a pie was because a center near enough. The center near enough to me does walk-in tournaments every Wednesday on the hard stuff. Don Barrett bowls there when he's around. And I want to go. Pies, yeah. I mean, if there's enough oil in the lane like that, I think actually for me, the absolute control has somewhat
Absolute power.
absolute control. Yeah, absolute control is an oil. Absolute power is the ball I use on that oil. Yeah, the absolute power has been a really good ball for the sport type conditions, and I think it actually is probably pretty good on the house stuff too, because it is kind of that control motion. Uh, Here's one that's probably for you. I'm newly converted two-handed bowler, and I've been struggling with getting my ball speed up. Can only manage to get it about 12 miles per hour. How do you do it?
How do you do it? Okay, your push step probably isn't very long if you're throwing it 12 miles an hour, and you're probably is a lot of stop start. You just got to make it smoother and then make your push step longer. Get that foot out in front of you and let the momentum continue onto the lane.
Push step being your pivot step,
Your pivot step, yeah.
next to last step.
Next to last step, yeah.
So take that back, smooth,
Smooth.
and then yeah, with your footwork, it doesn't always have to be fast, but it can't be choppy.
Yeah.
It has to build. Um, I know we talk about having really fast feet, but actually, you don't have exceptionally fast feet, and you weigh 150 pounds, and you were throwing it 22 miles an hour last night, 22 and a
Uh-huh.
half. And that's not quite your top speed, but it's close.
No,
So
that's top. That was max.
that was, well, at
I
the end
mean,
it was, and I forgot to look at the end to see if you got up to 23 because it was humming down there pretty good.
yeah.
We are an hour and 10 minutes in, so we're gonna couple more questions, but how do you guys deal with confident issues if applicable? In other words, how do you get out of a slump when bowling tournaments?
You're asking me.
Yeah,
Just go and practice. You have to work on stuff that proves that you can compete and make the results show in practice, and then use that confidence in tournaments. Uh, that's I mean, that's how I gain confidence before tournaments is just
yeah,
practicing and then getting the results in practice, and then going into bowl tournaments and not changing the way I bowl just because I'm in a tournament.
yeah. I mean, it is tricky with confidence, and but that's largely where practice, in my opinion, that's where practice comes in. The more you practice, the more you've earned confidence. Some people just have it inherently, and I'm a little jealous of that they seem to have it no matter what happens or what the results are. Uh, but at least for me, that's what the practice did for me. That's you put in the time, and the results were uh, you knew you put in enough work, and you'd worked on the tools, and you had your base game, and that's kind of how I slump proofed myself for a long time. So that's about all I got there. Chris, have you considered doing the solo instead of having the scrub on the right fill in for Stu?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But you have some game to go play. Go to work. One of my buddies.
That's one of your guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually came in and saved me. I think these are interesting, but they're a lot harder to do with one person. And Brian from Florida there had an interesting match with AJ Johnson. He wouldn't shake your hand at the end. He was just irritated at the time, but he gets up in his feels a lot, so I'm not surprised. You know, if if he had a walkout song, it would be "You're So Vain."
Yo.
All right. I think we're gonna wrap this. We're gonna wrap this up. So the scrub might be back on Thursday. You never know.
Oh no.
He might help out Stu. Because I'll probably be on the road already, heading out. It's good to know. During the show, my mom messaged me, said, "Hey, I might need to start sooner than that." It shows me a schedule of the super senior shootout because evidently she thinks I'm over 60 already. So I just bowl like I am. So
Oh my gosh. Shut up,
uh,
brother.
you what?
Huh?
You what? What?
What?
But hey, we'll come back Thursday. You got any more stories about that? There might be time for a ball giveaway. Might be about that time of the month. So, you know, we'll come back in then. And I think adding in a little two-handed perspective every once in a while is probably not a bad thing, especially now that we're at summer and we can get some of those guys. So, um, some of those guys that are learning the game the way you did right now. So, I got nothing else. I'll be heading to Nationals Sunday, Monday, then the Senior Masters Monday through Sunday, then the U.S. Open, then I'll be back home in August. So that'll be fun. You got a bunch of stuff coming up. We'll get it going. And I don't know. You got anything else you want to wrap up with?
Thank you, brother. Nope, I'm good.
Tuesday. All right. Well, with that, join us Thursday. Barnzy 2.0 joins in. We'll see. And between now and then, if you get a chance, please support the sponsors that support us. Storm, Rotogrip, 900 Global, Coolwick, Bowlers Mart, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Ford. Till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.